into this next game after that exciting first one here between B and Beasty.
Game one that could have left the player screaming and shaving all of his hair off in frustration. We'll just have to check on Beastyqt to make sure he's got the full set of hair as he resets and moves into what could be his final game of round number 2 here in Golden League 2. B, meanwhile, he has the buffer. He took the lead in this BO3, but he might easily find himself drawing out and going to a third game when he picks something unorthodox. Vive le Français.
Yeah, I know Marine Lord's happy seeing the French get picked, and, you know, we'll see if it will end up paying off for B, as not too many people have been utilizing the French and kind of thought of as that weakest civilization, or one of the weakest at least.
Yeah, and, you know, you got to kind of give something different. You can't just play your standardized play. One cool thing you can do to begin with, you should anticipate, you should be able to move out onto Pocket Eco for free. And even if you now get pushed off, say 2 minutes from now, it's not too bad for a French player, because most civs would have to expend 50 wood on this. It's just a 25 wood investment for the French.
Yeah, my question is, I'm wondering if B is going to go ahead and get some good old survival tech? Is that what it's called?
Yes, survival techniques for the 15% gathering speed on hunt. It's a good idea.
There it is, immediately coming through. So just getting that Dark Age survival tech, not too expensive of an upgrade, and will pay off as all those villagers are just going to work that much more efficiently on those early deer that are already better than those sheep or berries.
I think it should just be required for all French players to get it. It is the cost of the holy number. It's 69 resources, I believe. 17 wood, 52 gold, right? And it's just, like you said, if he's going for this Chamber of Commerce play down the line, it's so cost efficient when you consider how much traders cost now, right? And you're just going to get that queued up for free the moment you begin. The other thing to keep an eye out for to see if this is going to be a Chamber of Commerce build is whether B starts researching forestry. It's the most cost-efficient research you can get if you're just trying to like pay for a trader.
I mean, he's gotten survival tech. He's getting wheelbarrow. It's kind of all putting the writing on the wall for a Chamber of Commerce, as he's wanting to get these techs in through, and that way, right when the chamber finishes up, it's gone. We talked all about it. We talked all about it, and it's just the normal School of Cavalry. This is just, it's always what happens. You hype something up, and then it's just not what you talked about at all.
And there you go, guys. We gave you a completely unexpected outcome. Woohoo! It's because of the trade post location. It's not in the corner. It's not retracted behind the base. It's for your base, and you'd also have to run a villager to the opposite side of the map. It's not a good placement for it. I also just think you give up so much for the School of Cavalry. The whole logic is like you immediately are able to pump out a knight. It's time efficient, right? The alternative is you complete a tech up, but then you have to build a stables afterwards. So you're adding on an extra 30 seconds in your wait time to even have that first night out.
Yeah, so that's where that first night will end up coming out somewhat quick. He did already delay some of that tech up already with his early wheelbarrow as well as early survival tech, but once the school finishes, he is going to have so much eco behind this. Easily will be able to never really stop his night production if he doesn't desire to.
Yeah, and here's an interesting change, right? So far, we've seen a lot of players open with a blacksmith at the beginning. BC tends to lean towards stables into archery range. He might layer in the blacksmith afterwards, but it tends to be on a slight delay. I don't mind that, because I think like you're not missing out much in terms of the tech timings, but what you are missing out is early presence on the map when you prioritize these blacksmiths ahead of time.
And going ahead, dropping that second moss, going Tower of Victory, does need to go ahead and get those techs through, and Scholar production as well.
Yeah.
So finishes that on up, and then we will see if he's dropping more production, dropping those blacksmiths, everything there. And, you know, as far as B, finishes up Feudal, Knight already in queue, exactly as expected, and another tech coming through as he is focusing hard on that. Being the French, they are cheaper.
So I think this is going to be a delay blacksmiths, but with additional scholars to pump up the research timings. It's pretty cool, like pivot. We have been seeing a lot more of the double moss. The logic is like you don't have to inhibit your scholar production, and you can just get all your tech researchers. And it's something that players have realized just how good it is by the Dome of Faith, right? Because Dome of Faith usually just allows you to pump scholars, garrison them inside, and then have your solo mosque researching everything consistently.
B scouted out the horseman, running across the map, dropped a barracks right by where his actual vills that are vulnerable are. So he'll have those spears exactly where he will need them to be for right now. Pretty sure the horseman just arrived at that location and the spear already out and ready. So not really too worrisome there. and a barracks being dropped for Beasty, as well as that blacksmith that you mentioned.
B's position is really desirable here. Like, either player getting the edge spawn on the deer is beneficial. Whether it's French or it's Deli, like, it's cavalry, right? And the benefit of this type of spawn is it's very difficult to find an angle. You can defend with less spears. We've seen players play the French before and drop TCs on the edge of the map. Really big shout out to Lucifron in particular, who've done this a lot. The logic is that you just don't have angles of approach compared to, say, if this deer was located ahead of your base in the center, like it is on Beasty's side.
Yep. A couple more of those horsemen streaming across, trying to find somewhere to damage, but B doing a really good job with his defense so far. Does have that back gold, but will take a bit of time for Beasty to circle around and get to that location.
It's just like, it's far out. That's one of the awkward things about his spawn. We've been highlighting this on a lot of maps. I think it's even happening on Dry Arabia frequently. It's just this gold vein doesn't feel as safe as it used to, right? I almost feel like you were just like a millimeter away from TC range in the past. Now it feels like you're a few seconds.
Yep, and those 6 villagers out on that gold will start to be focused in on by these horsemen. Quick enough pull back, only 1 villager going down to that lower health. Spearmen still available near that deer to push off those horsemen back away. But look at Beasty using that micro, not even getting touched.
Bro, what are we doing here? Dying. The answer is dying. He has got a second scout, right? It's not the end of the world. B did actually go for double scout, which I like here. And the nice. These shuffle arounds are so clumsy sometimes. Like, what was that weird pivot while still charging?
And the scholar pull!
He still loses 1, though.
Unbelievable micro still with that scholar pull. Almost saves all the vills up there. I really like how B is getting some damage in with his knights just before the spears arrive and pulling away.
All right, hear me out. If this was old Delhi with combat healing being double, I think that villager lives. Nerfs to Delhi was successful. Checkmate. Whoop, let's move on.
That's, yep, all that needs to be said.
So night count is quite threatening for Beasty right now, especially when he pulls scholars like this. What?
I mean, Beasty feeling like he has enough to move out on the map. B doing a great job dodging around that first initial military mass onto the scholar mass and able to pick up one of those vital units, which he is Tower of Victory. They're so much more expensive.
And keep in mind, right, that B has archers on the way, so bringing this many scholars out becomes very threatening for you. If you do not get these walls up, you're probably going to have to run away with 2 additional scholars dropping.
Yep, B not quite to that mass that he wants to be able to one-shot the spears, but just got to it now, is pumping out that double range production, just as Beasty has secured his first sacred site.
And the interesting part is, like, B, he didn't trickle out his archers, but I think, like, most players usually start moving them out when they have, like, 6. His logic here, though, is if he brings the archers out early, these knights have to babysit. Instead, they just get to reign supreme and do whatever they want.
Exactly that. One thing you'll notice is with the deli, well, we got another clash probably about to happen as BC trying to pull back away from this, but the first knight does get picked up by Beasty at least, so that's a good pickup there.
You need to leave, and your scholars aren't very fast on the retreat, so he needs to bring the second wave. Beasty, does he feel confident? There's just so many knights here. Heavy damage from the scholars, the head pattern will commence. But he needs to start whittling away at the French archers. Otherwise, he's just going to be dominated in these mid-fights.
Yeah, a few more of those spears have been taken out, and Beastie starting to hurt on that spear number is at the exact same as the knight number, which is a scary predicament to be in. But what I was going to mention earlier was the going against the French is the Delhi. Some civilizations, you'll see them spread out, capture all the sacred sites as once. But with French, they're so good with that mobility. They're so good with that map control. You do see the one at a time. Make sure you secure up this first one, wall up, and then move to the next. Well, Beastie still hasn't really been able to get that first one yet.
And also, by starting on the right side, he's actually helped B, because B wants to play right side of the map. You saw he just expired his first deer stack. He's on the second. After that is Boar. Everything he needs is right side. So by forcing these clashes in the center to the right, it means that B can knee-jerk react and defend as well.
Yep, Horseman going in for that wood line yet again. B spots this one out, still has his knights there, just kind of this back and forth, looking at each other from afar. And, you know, as they get close, it's like the dogs through a fence. It's, as the gate opens up, they're like, all right, no, we're chill. We're going to back on away. And then the gate closes. Like,
you know, like, my favorite thing in this game is if you ever listen to French knights when they're charging, when they're charging against anything they can beat, it sounds very morale boosting, right? Like, yeah, we got him. But when they're charging towards spears, you can kind of imagine it being a scream of a man who's about to die. Like, please don't make me do this. Listen to it next time. You'll see what I mean. I love that.
Yep. Speaking of a good old charge, these horsemen circling around to charge onto these gold villagers, running back towards that barracks, towards maybe a little bit of that spearman mass that was protecting up those deer villagers.
The horsemen.
Oh my God.
How did he get away with that? Shivs out!
Oh, 2 horsemen picked up with the shivs.
I believe the term is so be it.
First sacred site has been walled, has been secured during this annoyance and raiding, but Beasty has to be worried about these knights that are circling. He's trying to secure up his next spot for food, as his berries and some of his original spots are probably running a little bit lower, and he will need to secure this to keep the numbers pumping.
Man, this is so frustrating for Beasty. Like, usually you just look and go, deer and berries in the same spot? Perfect! Yeah, but that's usually in a game where you're not behind, right? Where you haven't got to be threatened by these knights raiding. And by the way, behind this, B does have the potential to go Castle Age soon. Like, he's choosing to double down for the time being. But if it ever feels like Beasty is at a clear disadvantage, right? If he feels like he gets to, say, 10, 15 knights, he could just stop harassing like this and go Castle ahead of Beasty.
Yeah, Beasty, though, military numbers cannot be taken lightly. It's 64 to 37. You can see the army value tilting heavily in Beasty's favor, and that could be some of those resources that you were talking about. He was somewhat floating, getting closer to these kind of castle-age techs, but as the French, you don't really want to be fighting a castle-age game against the Delhi.
Now, quickly, wall behind him. Oh, he's not going to do it in time. That would have been the play to trap them in, but he's unable to do so. Will at least cost B 2 knights, though.
Almost was able to wall him in. He has fully walled in that location, though. Will allow a scholar to jump inside, start getting the next bit of gold flow from that following sacred site.
Beasty is starting to build a little eco lead, as you expect, right, with the villager production speed of the French. That military lead that Beasty had feels a little bit smaller, right? It feels like B is starting to close that gap after that reinvestment you talked about. You know, it seems his goal is just to mass archers, but a dangerous goal, really, when you consider that you're up against TOV and Beasty is already 10 ahead.
Yeah, the Knights really just need to be continuing to find value. Yes, he's gotten a couple, well, I guess one Vil pick, a decent bit of idle time here and there, but hasn't really found that huge success like you will see from the French a lot. Knight numbers up at 16, though, and that, very scary, but Beasty has more than enough spears to deal with that if the fight head-on is taken.
And the pressure is now on B to come and do something. Not only is his base at risk of being sieged, the triple sacred site cap has commenced. So Delhi have ticked that box that they've been known for in the past. And B, he refuses to be bogged down. He says, you raid, I raid. Knights round the back and limited spears to stop him.
Yeah, this is the first big raid from B. Was able to get a couple picks on the Vils, but at what cost? Main fight's going on up front, and just, I don't think B has the numbers here. Knights trying to dive in, but can't find a spot that they can really do some damage, as the spear mass still there, still up front. And pulled back, though, archers getting absolutely obliterated by 3DB.
This looks like possible GG right now. There's just not enough archers to clean up the spears. BC even delayed and pulled back with them. He tanked with scholars. And B, he got baited into it. He got sucked into the trap. He wasted so much time clicking onto the healers that he was neglecting the raw force that was being rammed down his throat.
And even though B might have that eco lead, it isn't accounting for the triple sacred site that BC has. It's ticking down. He was able to, you know, somewhat defend up that raid, but the military loss that B just had is going to be devastating and so hard to recover from.
Well, this is a new approach to...
BC's trying to wall out his berries. He said, you BM'd me last match. I am going to get my revenge this match. And B is feeling that pressure now, moving away from those deer that he had almost finished up, thought he was safe and secure to just grab that last little bit of venison, but Vils just got absolutely wiped, and Delhi is at a position that they have taken down more Vils than French.
Beasty's like, I noticed first game you really like defensive structures. Let me just show you my defensive structures. I mean, if he goes back out into the deer as well and walls that in, B has to make a farm transition. A farm transition where he is clearly outmatched militarily and will continue to be so. These raids all around the flanks, less impactful when BC can just expend Spearman to defend. On top of that, don't be mistaken by the patch. Beasty is playing classic Delhi. 10 plus scholars, so anytime you're not consistently fighting, he's healing.
Yeah, speaking of consistently fighting, Clash was about to happen, but B, he just doesn't have the numbers. He knows that he can't take this fight, but he doesn't really have an option. BC's at the front side of his base. He's trying to do as much damage as he can with this kiting back and forth, but BC can just A-move and probably just sit on top of the town center in production and win this game now.
No. BC doesn't A-move. BC headbutts the keyboard, as we all know, right? It's the next level A-move, and he really is at that position here. You know, barring a miracle, maybe Jeanne d'Arc appearing and God himself helping, B has a completely sloped uphill battle. We're talking 90-degree angle and up you go.
Oh, and the berry villagers that were attempted to be walled in, about to be running on away. Goldvilles as well, but they don't have anywhere to go. He needs those resources. He needs those bad. Knights stepping on up to dive into the archer mass, thinking they found a good spot, but that's a choke point that the spear stepped up in, and this is exactly what BC wants. The Knights can't do anything. The Knights can't get on the archers, and the spear's perfectly positioned.
He tried to force the sandwich, but BC's so confident about his mass that he walks straight past it. And now the double down from the Knights have to go in. Spears are able to commit. Scholars are healing behind this. It's an absolute mosh pit in the base of the French.
B pulling Vils even to try to get as much damage down as possible. He needs as much help as he can, but it is not going to be close to enough. Scholars out healing everything, and it is over. Vil numbers falling, military numbers falling. Soon enough, B is falling here now.
At least we saved the peasants from their fates. They surrender over, and it means that we will be getting a game free in this elimination series. What a turnaround after the first.
Ooh, what a game. And, you know, I can't say I'm that surprised with seeing French lose. It was just, they're just not the civilization that has that pizzazz, that kind of special something to them. Yes, they have Royal Knights, but people have learned to figure out how to play against them.
Sorry. Did you, in a different way, just say the French are not fancy?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I thought that was impossible, but I think you might be right here. You know, it just felt like early on, I think B, he had a clear edge with his Knight Mass, but he was never able to really turn the screws. It was kind of weird. He got sucked into this mid-map aggression with Knights. And, you know, you ask any French player worth their salt, and I'm sure B knows this as well, your goal with those first few Knights is not to be fighting in the center, it's to be fighting the unarmed villagers at home. Something that it felt like B was barely able to do.